Joining me now is Martin Smith from Anchor Capital to share his analysis on the day's market's performance. Martin, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. Quite a busy day on the markets front, and I want us to start off with, the good news, the local news, with the JSE crossing the 100,000 mark for the first time. What a year it's been for the local bourse, to be quite honest. Really resilient throughout all the geopolitics, throughout the trade news. We have been seeing the formation of the GNU really boosting local markets, as well as increasing commodity prices, that being gold prices as well as the platinum prices. Just take me through your analysis of, what we've been seeing in the JSE. I mean, it has been a long time coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, like you mentioned, it's the Platts, the golds, NASDAQ process have been the real kind of stars of the show. And I think they almost take turns as to which is the one that's going to push the market up on the day. Obviously, today it's NASDAQ and process, given up sort of 10 cents. So those have been the kind of big, kind of heavy lifters in the market. The rest is playing a little bit of catch up. I think the SA Inc. side of things benefiting a little bit from the stronger rand or weaker dollar, however you want to look at it. But I think you need a little bit of kind of SA growth and the macroeconomics to kind of improve in the background for the SA Inc. side of stuff to really kind of catch up to, like I mentioned, the big drivers, which has been obviously the PGMs, gold and NASDAQ, and obviously a handful of others. But either which way, it's been good from a JSE perspective and from a South African perspective. And
just how much of a boost did the US-Japan deal give the JSE, considering that it did also fuel the positivity we are seeing globally?
Yeah, so I think from a sentiment perspective, we've got a little bit more certainty. From a Japan perspective, probably a decent outcome for them. I think a best case would have been 10%, a worst case kind of 25%. They settled around about 15% on tariffs, which also includes cars, which is very kind of big for them. It's about a third of their exports to the US. So from a Japan perspective, quite a good outcome for them. Obviously, things now turn to a political they're going to worry about their politics kind of post the trade deals being agreed. But overall, from a trade deal perspective, I think very good for them. And like Donald Trump said, and I'm not going to try to do an impression of him, but he said it's a massive deal for them and for Japan. So yeah, good all around.
And particularly the automakers. I think the last time I checked, which was early in the morning, your Nissan, your Toyotas, your Hondas were all up like 8% in morning trade that side. Let's take a look at some local company news. Vodcom upbeat about its prospects. This after starting its financial year quite strong. Revenue up over 10% in Q1, and that thanks to a strong showing out of South Africa as well as Egypt. Just your reading on that update.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, look, Vodacom's had an unbelievable year this year. It's up almost, I think, 50% year to date. The numbers in kind of aggregate were very, very solid. Like you mentioned, Egypt, absolutely the star performer. You've seen the whole international side of their business actually doing very, very well, and you've seen kind of margin expansion. The only maybe one that's fallen behind a little bit is Mozambique, but the rest of them doing very, very well. And like you mentioned there, they've upgraded their kind of medium-term guidance, which is very, very positive. So that's kind of all boding very well for them. Like you said, South Africa growing service revenue by 3%. The only kind of negative I would maybe say is that prepaid sales have gone backwards, which maybe speaks to a consumer in SA that's under a little bit of pressure. And I'm sure we'll touch on the Mr. Price numbers, which maybe kind of indicate maybe a similar theme. But again, overall, very, very solid set of numbers. You do have this please call me overhang still there. But other than that, operationally, very, very good from Vodacom and shareholders, like I mentioned, up 50% year to date. So they'll be happy.
And let's zoom in on, consumer sentiment and I guess consumer purchasing power, looking at Mr. Price's results. On the surface, things look good. I mean, they are saying that the cold weather as well as the timing of Easter are giving it somewhat of a boost. But I do see that the share price is down. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about the disconnect we're seeing there.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, revenue up, Revenue not up relative to last year, kind of comparatively. Also, it's a miss versus what the market's expecting relative to last year, but last year's base was comparatively quite a big one. So maybe not a true kind of indication. But I think the thing that maybe stood out for investors is the fact that the kind of outlook statement is a little bit muted, and I think you are starting to see a little bit of a creep and a little bit of a worry around maybe the SA consumer and some of the tailwinds we hope for, lower interest rate, two-pot system, load shedding, all those things, maybe not coming through kind of as aggressively as we kind of hoped. So I think that's just something to keep an eye out for. But like I said, maybe creeping into the themes of both Vodcom and Mr. Price. Look, Mr. Price is still my preferred pick in the sector along with Pepkor, but I think you do need an improving macro kind of backdrop in South Africa for that to play out nicely.
And it's interesting to see the kind of impact or lack thereof of the two-pot system withdrawals. I think the last time I was speaking to an analyst from Old Mutual, and he had said that we aren't seeing it in the formal market because we're not seeing big retailers or financiers reporting that they are getting this money, and perhaps it's going into the informal market, and just talking to the resilience we had thought the South African consumer has had. Let's move over to Canel and MultiChoice. That deal getting the thumbs up from the competition tribunal. Your thoughts on the move and the timing of it all? I know there's big investments planned for local content creators, but MultiChoice, of course, bleeding subscribers and also struggling to turn Showmax into a profitable business.
Yeah, I mean, this is one that's been playing out now for, I'd say, the better part of 2 years, give or take. So, I mean, we've been kind of leading up to this point, and like you mentioned, the whole pay TV and subscriber and all the different options, it's sometimes a race to kind of who can spend the most to get the best content, to get people to stay on their platform. So it's an interesting move that we've seen, and again, one that I think has been coming for a long time. And yeah, with regards to that, I think something that's, like I said, been on the cards for a while, and at least we're getting to a conclusion on it.
All right, then, Martin, let's get to your pick. What are you, or where, or rather, are you seeing opportunity at the moment?
So my stock pick is Renogen. Look, I called it sometime last year, and I was wrong. I was wrong for a while. Thankfully, the shares had a little bit of a comeback and it's traded quite nicely this year. But look, I think post this ASPI kind of merger, it'll be about 15 to 16% of that story. And I think it's one of the most interesting stories that you have on the JSE. And I think there's real potential upside. And I still think it's a very, very attractive entry point, even after the moves that we've seen this year already. Even
with that takeover bid hanging over it?
Look, so that's kind of gone through now, not formally.
Oh, okay.
And you are correct that it hasn't gone through officially, but you've kind of just needed to go through kind of all the regulatory kind of panels and all those things, which we anticipate will happen. And once that happens, I think the kind of merged entity is, like I said, a very, very interesting and very, very unique proposition where I think you have proper potential upside. And I don't know if there's anything else like it on the JSE at the moment.
All right, let's leave it there, Martin. Thanks so much for your time. All right, let's leave it there. That was Martin Smith from Anchor Capital.